revolution is televised.
So harmonious. Episode 125 of the Unplugged Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Velasquez, and for the first time ever, this is podcast number 1 via video. And what two better-looking humans can we introduce to the world than myself and my guest, Mr. Warren Hayes? How are you, good sir?
I was suddenly, is there a third guest? I was like, what are we doing? Hey, nice to see you, Jesse. Thank you. It's been a while since we got an opportunity to chat about pro wrestling, and I am very, very honored that you have decided to invite my mug onto your first video, on the first video iteration of UWP. Bold choice, very bold. But I am appreciative to be here. Very much so.
I like to go big or go home, so we're not leaving. That
we'll
is
see,
for sure.
We'll see where we are. Let's check back in a few minutes. Are we going big or home? We'll figure it. We'll figure it out soon. Promise.
And I looked in the archives, and it's literally been close to a little over 2 years since the last time you've been on my show.
Sounds about right. Yeah, it was with your co-host at the time, if I'm not mistaken, right? There was the three of us. Yeah, it's been a while. It has been a while. So yeah, it's like, feels good though. It's like putting on the pair of Stan Smiths you used to wear in high school. And you're like, hey man, these still fit and they're great. That's how it feels right now, Jesse. Coming back to see you.
101 episodes ago, which is nuts to think about. And on that night, let's just give a little bit of backtrack. Blood and Guts, the original variation, took place that night.
Okay. So it has been a while. Boy, has things have changed a little, haven't they? Just a smidge since then, since the original Blood and Guts. Holy smokes, man, that has been a while.
At that time, that crowd in Jacksonville, Florida was probably half full, and Double or Nothing was about 3-4 weeks later and ended up being a full house, and that's when crowds started to come back. Thank goodness.
Yeah. The original was, there were still, all the restrictions put in place and whatnot, and what a wild period that was for pro wrestling, and it's crazy that a lot of the promotions that we really enjoy, that we really enjoy, like big major league promotions, were still able to survive that, the pandemic era with the, everything being shut down and whatnot. Of course, it all boils down to cash and the availability of money and cash flow, but they practically, only Ring of Honor ultimately ended up being a casualty, but then resurfaced in another form. But they all made it. WWE, AEW, Impact, New Japan. They're all they all made it, which is incredible when you think about it. And to a degree, you might even argue that they're back, and the wrestling business is stronger for it when you look at all the happenings business-wise that are going on. But it's just crazy to think about.
2 years in, we're seeing television deals being rolled out, money in wads being shuffled into the pockets of Stamford, Connecticut, and Jacksonville, Florida. I'm sure they're taking place as well in the wonderful country of Japan, too.
I mean, and it's crazy when you think of that's the word I always use when I think about back in the pandemic era versus now. Look at the environment that we are about to get onto. Like, of course, nothing has been announced officially for AEW, right? Like, Warner Bros. Discovery hasn't come out with a statement. AEW hasn't come out with a statement. We're all rolling on all these reports that all seem to be coalescing around the same type of information, though I'd be surprised if everything would be that off. But let's consider, just for the sake of chit chat here, let's assume that AEW is getting the Saturday show. We're going to have wrestling on Mondays, wrestling on Tuesdays, wrestling on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and then occasionally on Sunday on top of that. Jesse, I've been watching pro wrestling for most of my adult life. I do not remember a single time where there was wrestling on every night that I could sit down and watch Major League Wrestling just by flipping my television on and just like, all right, I got this on tonight. It's nuts. The business is in a really, really good spot for pro wrestling fans right now. It's really super exciting.
We couldn't always say that. I could definitely say, what would that be? 2002, when the WWE was an entity on itself and New Japan was struggling. Noah had just separated from All Japan, so you had 3 major promotions over there that, the money was up and down. And then TNA was just a startup. Ring of Honor had just started up. So essentially, the WWE and Vince McMahon became what he always wanted, and that was a monopoly. So what happened after that in 2019, as soon as All Elite Wrestling surfaced, I mean, don't get me wrong, New Japan was making humongous strides around this time, but their defections led to Tony Khan taking a chance on 4 gentlemen plus some others, and all of a sudden the business now has sprouted to where people that have left there, they've still been able to go to an Impact or a Ring of Honor, or even go back to, look at Matt Cardona, goes back to the Indies. He's making more money he's ever made in his life.
And that's the sign of a healthy business, right? That's the sign of a good, healthy wrestling ecosystem in North America. We need things like Ring of Honor and MLW and NWA and Impact, to sort of continue just maintain this cycle of wrestling, of guys and gals having opportunities, places to work. Might peak at one place, and then at some point, because the business is cyclical regardless, at some point, you might fall out of favor. You just might get a little hurt. You won't be able to perform on that level, but you're still able to go work somewhere else. We laugh about, NWA and their decisions, whatnot, but there's a whole slew of people working there that wouldn't work anywhere else, if we're being honest, and good for them. MLW has been an open window to bigger promotions for a lot of people there as well, and also a more stable paycheck for guys and gals who are working the indies. Mance Warner is a guy who comes to mind in that circumstance. So this is how it should be, Jesse. It really should be not just one entity just sitting atop everything and just like, well, it's our way or the highway. A healthy ecosystem. And Japan understands this, right? The Japanese side of things understand this, because if it wasn't, we have proof. We actually have proof. They come out of the pandemic. What do they start doing, Jesse? They start putting on joint shows. They're doing Noah versus New Japan. Then they do the Muda show where everyone sends their people. They're going to do it again in a couple of weeks. They're doing another joint show, the All Together show. They're like, because in the Japanese environment, despite the fact that they're all competitors, don't get me wrong, they don't all sit around, they don't sit around the table at the end of the day drinking sake and telling, and saying, hey, high-fiving each other and going, what a great day. They're all still competitors. Mm-hmm. But they also know that, the boat will rise if the tides do. Does that, or I don't remember what the expression is. Like, there's an idiom for that, but I don't remember what it is. But it's like if everyone does work together in a healthy business environment, it will raise everyone. To paraphrase other podcasts that I listen to, that would never happen in North America. North America, they want you to sink. They don't care. In Japan, it's a whole other thing. It's like elevate everyone and everyone benefits.
It's incredible. And we grew up during a time, I know we had this discussion. I talked about the AWA a couple of weeks ago. And correct me if I'm wrong. I know that you're from the Quebec area. That's where you grew up. Was it international wrestling? Was that the...
It was, yes. Lutte internationale, international wrestling, yes.
Who was Dino Bravo the actual owner, or was there a different owner?
He was like not part of the original ownership, but yes, he in its final hurrah, it was him, Andre the Giant, and Gino Brito, who I don't know if that's a name that you're familiar with, but Quebec wrestling fans know who Gino Brito is. He was a promoter, a wrestler as well. Like, he was very well known in the environment as well. So they were all three of them were co-owners of Lutte Internationale. And then Andre removed himself towards the end. And then eventually they just got gobbled up by Vince. That was essentially it. But in a good move, because everyone ended up working for Vince. Like everyone who worked for Lutte Internationale all ended up working for Vince.
Yeah, I saw that doing my due diligence. We covered AWA Wrestle Rock a couple weeks ago and the influx of talent. Like Ricky Martel was the AWA World Champion about 4 or 5 months prior before Stan Hansen took it from him. But Dino Bravo was in AWA for a time. Andre the Giant was there. I think he left the day before Hogan did. So yeah, the days of the territories are gone. But hey, we have a lot of national corporations now that are in business and everything's healthy.
Absolutely.
And before we dive into our first topic, we are going to say hello to our chat, and that would be, let's come on back here. And hello to Kristen Ashley.
Hello.
Wonderful to see you.
Stranger.
Yeah. And Top Rope Nation, Mr. Ryan Drossi, 2 great minds for the wrestling business right here. Congratulations on the first live stream. I truly appreciate all of your support right now. And if you're catching this a little bit later, I'm going to be throwing some things on the ticker here and doing a little bit of screen sharing on top of this. So before we go into the meat and potatoes of said podcast, Warren, I have had a segment on here, and you have left this GD Awful app a long time ago, thank goodness, right? That would be Twitter. And I have decided to narrow down today's takes to 3. We have 3 very rough takes on wrestling Twitter. We'll be sharing them with the screen, and here we go.
The story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
All right, and here we go. AEW did not sell that many tickets. Ticketmaster is lying. They're just saying those seats are sold, so it doesn't look like the disaster it is in reality. It's well known that Shad and TK are best buds with the people at Ticketmaster. #facts. Warren, your thoughts?
Garbage. There's no, but it's junk, and I'd say something more severe. But I didn't ask you if I could, if we could curse on your podcast. This is, it's fucking trash. Let's stop this right now. Like this is weirdo, tinfoil conspiracy. You know, the Ticketmaster, and the Wembley show and everything. It's like TK buys all the tickets. Come on, like I've heard. Like just take a minute. You weirdos, you absolute bozos. Just take a minute. I know you're not listening to this because this is too much of a high-end show for you to dial into. But take a minute to think. How the hell does that even happen? Let's just play along with it. Let's say TK buys 20,000 tickets out of the Wembley arena. Okay, let's just throw it out there. Okay, maybe that's what he's doing. We've had these reports before. It's like, oh well, you know. Forbidden Door sold out because of what if but okay, so he buys the tickets and yet the arena sold out. You know, they pan through the audience, there's people everywhere. If there was 10,000 tickets that TK had picked up, there'd be 10,000 empty seats, right? Otherwise, how does he do this? How does he put them on the resale market, right? How does he manage this? What is the process then, Jesse, that happens where a guy's like, I'm going to buy 10,000 tickets and resell them? How? Like it never reaches those numbers. It's ridiculous. These are the worst garbage takes of all time. These are just like petty little weirdos. I don't know why it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense.
Warren, we've had some incredible ones over the course of the last 3.5 months, and we never shout these people out by name, so I always hide their aliases just to protect their image. I think that's the best thing to do.
Protect yours as well. It's like you don't want their names on your soiling your good podcast. What are you doing? Of course not.
I just think it's fun to laugh at. I think it's really great fodder.
Yes, it is.
And let's go to number 2. I really enjoyed this one immensely.
I'm excited. Off the strength of the first one, I'm excited for number 2.
All right, make sure this is the right one. This is for Phenomenal. That is the one right there. And kaboom. We have somebody that put a list of 100 wrestlers that active right now that are better than your AEW World Champion, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF.
Why would you do this? Why would you do this? How can you? Imagine the time they spent. Don't want to make any assumptions here. The time they spent typing in 100 names.
Sami Zayn with an E. Incredible. Incredible.
Oh, and I have a love-hate relationship with Kenta, to be perfectly honest,
Yeah.
and there is no 2023 Kenta in no way, shape, or form is the Kenta we once knew in the mid 2000s when he was just an absolute whirling dervish of destruction. He's not even close to being up there. And as Kristen pointed out, I think we saw Juice Robinson on there as well. Hilarious. Oh my Lord. That's actually very funny and also very sad.
Yeah, I saw an Okada not named Kazuchika on that list as well.
Oh, really?
I did. That's
just
bad.
Like Okada, or he
with
mangled the name.
Yeah,
with a Y.
Yeah, so maybe you would
yes. Know. Yes. Okay.
Yes. I mean, don't get me wrong, and we're gonna dive into Maxwell Jacob Friedman, I think, right after this segment. But yeah, I don't think I could name 20 or 25 wrestlers right now better than him. It'd be hard.
Well, I mean, it depends. Yeah, it's always a question of criteria and whatnot.
Yes.
If you wanna, start digging a little bit, and you're if you're going on pure work rate, well, maybe your list is a little heftier. Maybe, I think you could stretch that out quite a bit. But I mean, MJF he's a complete North American professional wrestler. He can do whatever he wants in the ring. He can dial it back just as he can have the 5-star match that he said he doesn't want to have, but he had it. He had it just this year. And I mean, what a delight on the mic as well. His character work is top notch. If you want to package all of that together, and if you want to compare strengths for strengths, no, I don't think I'd be with you. Maybe 20, 25 wrestlers at the most that you could say with great confidence, that, oh yeah, absolutely better wrestler than, because sure, if you want to say Vikingo is a better wrestler than MJF, okay, sure, work rates, so on and so forth, but give Vikingo the mic. And I'm talking for North American audiences. I couldn't judge his Spanish promos. I don't know. Is he a good promo? It's sometimes I listen to Hiromu Takahashi cut a promo at the end of a show. And I'm like, he sounds like a good promo, but I don't know. I don't speak Japanese. I have no idea. I don't have a clue. Kota Ibushi, fantastic, all-timer pro wrestler, terrible at promos. That's what that's the consensus. He's just he's awful. So, is Kota Ibushi a better wrestler than MJF? Maybe, it's hard to say at this point,
You nailed it. It's all because of criteria. So if we're going in ring, but Kota hasn't. Well, no, he wrestled over the WrestleMania weekend with GCW and Bloodsport. So, and I'm sure we'll be seeing him in the very near future. He's a free agent, and I'm looking forward to seeing where he ends up. That's for sure. And we have one more to go, folks. Once again, this is very compelling. Omos gets hate because wrestling fans expect every performer to hit Canadian destroyers like it's nobody's business. He's a legitimate giant working a style that blends in perfect with today's super athletes, i.e. Rollins at Backlash. Admit it, you're an Omos sapien.
I love that word. I don't expect all wrestlers to pull Canadian destroyers. Who cares? Like, that's hardly the point. I think I don't think the problem is Omos. I think that it's the way he's booked, which is weird, because you would assume that in World Wrestling Entertainment, which has always been the land of the giants, that this guy would be perfectly booked, but he's not. He's a guy who comes on TV and squashes the J-Brones and then goes to the big matches and loses them. So there's no, the mystique to him, because yes, limited move set, limited amount of, personality, charisma, whichever way you want to call it. I don't, he's absolutely not as personable as Andre used to be. If we want to do a comp, that may or may not be fair, because Andre was also a much more nimble athlete than he was. Of course, I'm talking Andre before he hit the WWE, before the back problems, before so on and so forth. Andre was a guy his size should not have been moving the way he was doing. It was just spectacular stuff. But Omos, you'd think that in WWE, they'd know exactly how to book him. They know how to take care of him and make him look like a star, but he loses the big matches, wins against the J-Brones. He's a non-factor. And if what it's going to take for him to get over is only have matches with the likes of Seth Rollins, because full disclosure, I thought that match was a blast. Their match in Puerto Rico, I thought it was an absolute blast. And yes, it called to all of Omos' strengths. And yes, this was a Seth Rollins match. He put this together and he captained that ship. You know what I mean? If what Omos needs to get over is other, top tier world-class athletes, pro wrestlers like Seth Rollins, Omos is in trouble. Seriously, let's say, who else? AJ Styles could probably pull it off. Maybe a guy like Kevin Owens, right, could pull it off as well. Frankly, I don't think Roman could pull it off. Not in the style that he's working today. You know what I mean? Like, Roman couldn't make Omos get that much out of Omos as Rollins did. Who else on that roster could? I mean, a Gunther Omos match would be fun as hell. And Gunther is indeed a ring general. He can absolutely guide people through a fantastic match. But if that's what you need to get him over, you're in trouble, because he needs to come into his own. I don't know.
He has MVP as a mouthpiece too, which
helps.
You would think it would add up to more than what's being presented.
And look, why would MVP need to get involved in this match? Because he interfered in the match. Not that it specifically bothers me. I thought it was well done, but I'm like, if Omos is supposed to be the monster that they say he is, he shouldn't need guys running around doing stuff for him, right? Making sure that that's all I'm saying. He's weirdly booked, so he comes across as a bit of a stiff and as a non-factor, because he always loses the big ones. He loses against Braun, he loses against Brock, he loses against Seth. Like, okay, sure, you can beat local talent. You can win a triple threat match against or a handicap match against local talent, sure. But where does that take you from there?
Exactly. We are also subjecting Elias to local talent. That's for sure. So, because he beat him about a minute and some change a while back, right after WrestleMania.
And Elias isn't exactly top tier talent either, where you're like, oh my God, he beat a lot. Like, if Omos had beat Brock, that would have been huge. That would have been tremendous. Like a complete flip, but it didn't happen. So Omos is like, oh, all right. So they bring him out, they do the camera angle to make sure we understand that he's really tall. And I'm like, okay, well, to me, he's another dude on the roster. He's not special, whereas he should be special. And commentary is selling him as being special. But to me, he's just another guy on the roster. Nothing wrong with it, but he should be special, but he's not.
which is something we're going to get into the topic after this. So what this podcast is going to be specializing in moving forward is the first day's take on next week's big topic. And I think the best topic to start off with is someone who has been a little under the radar and someone we have been talking about over the last couple of minutes, and that's Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF, your AEW World Champion. Right now, he is in what we would call a secondary world title feud with, of course, the focus being on the Blackpool Combat Club and the Elite Four, Double or Nothing, which is taking place a little less than 2 weeks from today in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're going to assume, and I'm assuming there probably are betting odds in Vegas, is that the other three guys are off the betting board, and MJF is probably the only one that you can bet on to win. That's how confident I think we are he's going to retain here at Double or Nothing. Assuming he does retain, who would you pair him with over the summer with Forbidden Door coming up and then leading into All In and presumably All Out?
That's a very good question. There's still multiple possibilities for MJF, and I don't know. Like, I'm assuming they're going to want to do something at Forbidden Door with him, right? I mean, he's the world champion. You want to put him on the card. It just only makes sense, right? The politics of him being the world champion, though, muddy the waters, right? Like, who does New Japan, who does Tony feel like in New Japan is worthy enough? And at the same time, that Gedo is like, I don't mind if this guy loses to your guy, because unless you really want to go super bold with the booking, I don't necessarily see an AEW guy, a New Japan guy, taking a title off of Max, and then taking the world championship to New Japan, especially with the summer that AEW has planned out right now. I kind of think you want to keep your world champion in place, your world championship in place to make things good. And besides, with how, you said it yourself, with how the build to Double or Nothing has been with the four pillars, it's a build that I have not been a fan of at all. I kind of think it stinks. You kind of want a redemption run for Maxwell after this. You kind of want the big, a good, sustained, heat-filled feud. So how do you do that, Jesse? Right? That's the question you're asking us, right? There's a couple of opportunities, and I think the clearest one is CM Punk. Of course, if he returns. Oh, I'm sorry. It hasn't been confirmed yet, of course. Sorry. Okay. For the sake of the argument, let's say he is returning. There's the history that's right there. There's this feeling that CM Punk didn't follow through on him either, right? That there was, because that was the plan, if my memory serves me correctly. We were supposed to get the rubber match at All Out.
Yes.
Right? And that didn't happen. So you could do good that way by charging that up for the summer. Now, do you play it off at Wembley or All Out? Who cares at this point? Like, that's not the issue we're talking about here. I think there would be great value in Max and Phil getting back to it, right? I also think another possibility is Hangman Adam Page, yes, which I think would be very, very interesting. Because, look, Page is about to come back. Page is going to come back this week on Wednesday. I'm convinced. He's got did you see the pictures from the live show this weekend?
I did. He wrestled Big Bill in Salem, or that was his backyard. Yeah.
And he had the eye patch and everything. Like, he's selling the injury. He's ready to come back. So, and the Hangman Page, his original title run, world championship run, I don't think was the definitive one. I didn't think it from the start that it would be the defining one. It would be his first. I think, he's a top babyface. I think it would be, people would be surprised at how over he is with the crowds. Even, I think you have to be there. You have to hear how the audience reacts to this guy to be like, oh, okay. They really, AEW fans really, really love Adam Page. I think that would be an easy shoo-in. But then again, do you want to do that, or do you not want to have Adam Page and Kenny Omega have a little more friction? Do you want to play off of that intrigue a little more? I don't know. I feel like those are the two obvious answers, but I think we have to go with obvious here. Because if Tony starts getting too cutesy with his top guy, coming off of the Four Pillars feud, which I believe, the match will be, I hope will be very good, because the tag team match they had 2 weeks ago, I didn't care for it much. So yeah, I'm hoping that the four guys are going to turn it up at the Pape. I have reasonable expectations that it'll be very good, but we're going to have to just admit, especially when you look that there's 2,000 tickets that haven't been distributed yet off of a 9,100 seat setup for Double or Nothing this year. At the same arena last year, they did 14,000 people. Like this feud has not been working. This build has not piqued the interest of AEW fans. They're ready to sit at home on this one. So I think Tony needs to go strong after this. He needs to wipe the slate clean from what happened and give MJF a big time feud, like the one he got with Danielson at the start of the year.
That's as big as it gets. That match was the best of his entire life. And then one thing as well is we're coming upon the year anniversary of Max leaving for 3 months, when he had that interesting, I can't think of the word, we'll go nuclear promo in the LA Forum. I think it's the Crypto Center now or whatever it is, where he called his boss an effing mark and dropped the mic. And apparently he was chased out of the arena, or at least into the crowd, by CM Punk at that time, which you felt was going to be leading to that feud. And I think the one thing that a lot of people, and this is something I'll ask you this question as well, I don't know if there was really a match that would fit Max at Forbidden Door. I don't necessarily know. Is there that New Japan performer, that crossover appeal that, hey, I really want to see him go against insert performer here?
Well, I think you could go with a Hiroshi Tanahashi, right? Just off of the name, it's the New Japan John Cena against this guy, and it works into MJF's perspective where he's like, I'm the best wrestler in the world, right? Sure, we're not, again, Tanahashi is up there in age, and his body isn't what it used to be. He's a little rough around the edges, but you make that as a match in North America, people are going to get excited about that. I think that's something that you could get value of, and that Tanahashi can lose without any issue, right? The booking of it might be a little weird because he's in the IWGP United States tournament, the IWGP United States title tournament. Tanahashi is, and he's probably going to lose his match against Will Ospreay, because Will Ospreay is absolutely going to the final. Or no, did he already have his match? I can't remember.
I got to take a look at that too.
But the point is that, he's not going to make it to the finals of the tournament to fight Kenny Omega, right? Because it's obviously going to be Will Ospreay, right? That's obviously what we're going for. And then here's the other question you can have for yourself also for Double or Nothing. If you're running Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega 2, which is the sequel to one of the greatest singles matches of all time that happened earlier this year at Wrestle Kingdom, that outclasses everything. I'm sorry. You bring out Sonata, you bring out MJF, no one cares. No one gives a crap about your other belts at this point, because they want to see, that's your main event. That's the thing. That's the draw. That's the match that's going to sell out the 61 tickets that are left at the Scotiabank Center. That's the one. That's the one. So, I see, put MJF in a tag team match in one of these trios things. I think that's fine. I think that's absolutely fine, considering everything. There is nothing they can do with MJF at Double or Nothing that will be bigger than Omega Ospreay, if they're running Omega Ospreay, of course. But if they do, that's your match. That's your pay-per-view seller. that's you. That, like I said, there's like 70 tickets left, 60 tickets left for the show in Toronto. So it's like, there'll be nothing left. That's the match. So whatever you do with them at Double or Nothing at Forbidden Door, but then it's after. Then it's like for Wembley. Then it's like for All Out if they decide to run it a week after Wembley, like it's being speculated and rumored. What did they do with him for the the new composition with the new upcoming shows as well? Like, is he going to be is he going to be someone who'll be able to go on both shows? Is he going to be a Collision guy and a Dynamite guy? Like, he's going to need something to sink his teeth into after Double or Nothing, regardless of what they do for Forbidden Door. He's not essential to that show. He's essential for the rest of the summer for AEW. And I think that's what Tony really needs to focus on, in my opinion.
Yeah, I truly believe that he's going to be a lesser commodity in Toronto. If he's even on the card at all, knowing his character, he'll just play it off on TV like, I'm too good to be on this Forbidden Door pay-per-view.
It works. Like, that's his thing. He's like, I don't want to work the work rate guys. I don't care. I don't want these people. I don't have to go to Japan. You go to Japan. I don't give a shit. That's part of his character. So It would absolutely work. I would love to see MJF in Toronto. Like, I have my tickets for the show. I'd love to see him live. I'd make a sign. To make it clear, the level of displeasure I have in regards to MJF. I would enjoy doing that. But if he's not there, I completely understand. That'd be fine.
And I know that there is tradition with New Japan and semi-mains and mains and card placements, and usually the second biggest headliner goes into the main event. I don't think Tony Khan would have the gallstones to put on anyone after Omega and Ospreay at all. Unlike Gato, who, by tradition, Kazuchika Okada and Jay White should main event Wrestle Kingdom. But you had the match that everybody needed a cigarette for after it was over. And they looked at Okada and White and said, I might have to go back and watch this later.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone was like, whew, I gotta go shower now. Tony is that kind of traditionalist as well, right? Where he will run the final, like the last match of the night is my world championship. Like, he hasn't faltered on that. And I wouldn't expect him to falter on that either. I think he would much prefer to just like not have a singles match for his world championship on the card, as opposed to having it, as opposed to deciding to run it before Ospreay Omega, which in a purely, like you said, I guess the word is traditional sense, it would make sense for your world championship to go on after the US title. But we know what we're expecting with the US title match. You just can't follow that. It's just, I don't know what you'd follow it with. Like, even if you decide to put like CM Punk after in a match at the end, like I don't know. It's a hell of a dilemma. I'm glad I'm not a booker, Jesse. Yeah. I'll tell you one thing.
Especially we're going to be 1 week after, we're assuming, and we're going to get into this in the next topic, that Punk is going to be in Chicago for what has not been announced yet, Collision. And then, of course, there's the Dynamite in Chicago before they travel to Toronto. One last question before we get into the Dynamite and Collision. Wardlow and then the TNT Championship. I feel that the way that Tony's been playing hot potato with this title, Wardlow could lose at any given time. Max could easily reheat his feud up with the guy who destroyed him and essentially made him go nuclear on television. Maybe do that over the summer. It's kind of a stopgap leading into All Out and All In.
Okay, I could see that for a couple of weeks, not unlike what they did with Ricky Starks, is what you're saying, right? Just a little sidebar to the real thing, right? Because yeah, sure, I could see that, because yeah, if it's just a little refresher, you establish, you give Max a big singles defense, after Double or Nothing, you give him a big singles defense. And then you lead into the meat and potatoes of your summer. Yeah, I could see a little sidebar like that, because yeah, you're not wrong. The TNT title is what it is right now. It ain't no international title, I'll tell you what. Ain't that great? Seriously, I know this is not on the run sheet.
Big time.
But isn't the international / All Atlantic title, hasn't that just been fantastic with Orange? Hasn't that just been great?
Who would have thunk it, to be honest, I guess. I knew that Orange Cassidy was a good wrestler. We all know it, but now he's actually stepped up yet another level by comparison. And if you take the title off of him, and when you finally do, you can maybe ascend him somewhere up to the top, and the fans, I think, would love it.
Look, now that we're talking about it, how about that for a nice hot little stopgap between now and, and the Wembley, a nice little Orange Cassidy MJF feud where it's not Orange's time. Like, maybe this is a discussion for a whole other moment as well, but is Orange Cassidy top guy material? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I'll tell you one thing, the role that he's in right now for this company, just outstanding. It's fantastic. It's the most compelling singles run since Cody's original TNT title run. For real. There hasn't been another title run in this company, in AEW, that has been as engaging, consistent. He's been on every week. He's been wrestling every week. And what's brilliant in it, Jesse, is that they've already baked in how he's going to lose because of his arm, his hand. He can't hit the moves. And now one of his legs, he's been transferring to body parts, and someone is going to figure out how to squeeze out of the mousetrap, and the person who does is going to win the title, and it's going to be a heel, and it's going to be fantastic. Whoever wins this title, Jesse, has so much instant heat built in. It's ridiculous. This has been pitch perfect so far. I'm really excited to see how this is going. And Orange Cassidy, man, anyone wanted to tell me, we're coming up to the mid-year right now. Anyone who wants to add Orange Cassidy to a potential, their half-year Wrestler of the Year list, I have trouble arguing against it. Maybe he hasn't had like the big main events or the big, huge opponents, but he's been consistent. How many defenses? 21, 22 he's up to at this point?
22.
That's nuts. It's fantastic.
With a wide variety of opponents. And if you really want to track back a year ago, oh, by the way, he arguably had the match of the night with Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door. Yeah.
He had a fantastic match with Will. So you see, this is what I'm saying. Is he a top guy? We could have that conversation. Because if he's stepping into the ring with arguably one of the greatest in the world and one of the greatest to ever do it, and he can not only hold his own but perform on that level, what are we holding back here? What's keeping us from pulling the trigger on the guy? Anyway, it's not on the run sheet. We're not going to talk about that tonight.
He's over, Warren.
Oh, God. On top of it all, Jesse, he's over like crazy. He's got the little kids dressing up like him, everything is working with this guy. Everything. And he was one of these irony wrestlers, from a few years ago when everyone was doing shtick on the indies. He's one of the last ones who came in and is still doing his shtick, but he's done it. And I don't know how much it's him with creative or Tony. He does it just enough to be, this is Orange Cassidy, he does the hands in the pockets and all that, the shin kicks. But then it kicks in. Then he becomes professional wrestler. I'm being paid to be on national television, pro wrestler, and I deserve my spot. It's fantastic.
And he has to be top 5 in merch in AEW.
He has to. Oh, he has to. I couldn't imagine, despite the fact that it's really easy to make your own Orange Cassidy merch between you and I. You just have to go to Goodwill and get some jean jackets and shit. It's like
aviator sunglasses, we're set.
There you go. You're all set.
I love it. Well, we might tie him into this next conversation, and that's AEW Dynamite, and we think AEW Collision, which I'm assuming is going to be a part of the announcement on Wednesday, hence why first day's take on next week's hot story. What similarities and or differences do you want to see between these two shows? Because there is a rumor as well of a soft brand split.
Yeah. That's going all over the place. You have people saying, oh, yeah, they're still talking about. Other people saying, no, it won't be as much of a brand split as you think. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter. First of all, I'm excited at the prospect of more wrestling on TV. Like, you know, I think that's a given. So I think eventually, I think what I hope happens is that we don't have a hard split. That I hope we don't, because that will create a bit of a bit of a weird environment. Like, hear me out. Let's say for a few weeks, right up until the pay-per-view, House of Black are featured predominantly on Collision, but then they get switched over to Dynamite, and you don't have to give us explanations and so, because that's the most tiresome thing with the brand split in WWE. It's like the first question when someone who's not on a brand, who's not on that brand, pops up on that brand, is like, why is that person here? And then you feel like you need to get into all this, you know, all these explanations, and then it gets really, really tiresome. So what I'm hoping is that it's, I guess the term like you use, soft, in the sense that for a while we're going to work you on Collision, and then after that we're going to work you know, we'll bring you back on the Wednesday show because we need you there for so on and so forth, right?
Yes.
I really hope that it's not this, that we're not creating you know, these two cosms that can never interact, you know. Because ultimately I think that's kind of poison, and then I think you create other problems with with the locker room, where let's say someone does get transferred, we're months in, and someone does get transferred from Dynamite to Collision, and there was a hard break, you know, and then they go into the locker room backstage, but now that the Collision locker room is like, oh, you know, you got to pay your dues. I'm not pay your dues, but you know, it's like, you know, they, you know, oh, you're the intruder, you're the new guy here, or the new girl here, you know, we don't want you here, kind of thing. Then it creates a whole weird environment. That's one thing I hope. I also hope that I hope that this, okay, conventional wisdom would say this is a great opportunity to showcase more women, more of the women's division,
yes,
of AEW. That's what conventional wisdom would tell you. But I have trouble trusting Tony Khan in that regard.
I agree.
I have trouble saying, oh yeah, no, what are my guarantees that it will not be double doses of Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter? I love Britt and Jamie. Do not get me wrong. But there's, you know, as the roster deepens and more fantastic women are added to this roster, you kind of want them to be showcased. There's women who are on this roster who aren't even on anymore because it's always the same women who get the same amount of TV time. So, you know, I kind of would like a little more to that. I'd like that. Like I said, conventional wisdom would say, yeah, there'll be more time, more spots open for the women, but Tony Khan's track record as far as his women's division isn't, it's not stellar. So I don't have a lot of faith in that regard, but it's something that I would like. I also hope that they're not splitting this to really make this the CM Punk show because no one else wants to work with him, because that's a recipe for disaster. That's just going to blow up into their faces at some point. It's hopefully that there's more to this than just these reports that have been going around.
And did it also make you excited / nervous to see Miro and Thunder Rosa appear within 10 to 15 minutes of each other on Wednesday night?
I was like, you know, I was like, hey, maybe CM Punk is going to show up, and then they're going to create a stable of all the malcontents, you know, all the people who had to apologize to all the people who had to say, oh, I'm sorry, Tony. Then I really got excited. I was like, yeah, bring on everyone who's burned bridges with Tony. Let's go. But maybe this is, you know, a step in that direction to showcase more people and not just have the same people on the same show, not have all the same people on all the shows, right? It's not unlike what they do with Rampage either, right? Rampage, it's not exactly the same people who are on Dynamite, outside maybe of Orange Cassidy, but it's not always the same people who are on Rampage who are on Dynamite. That's what I'm hoping that they'll do with Collision on a 2-hour show that will hopefully feel like another A show as opposed to another B show.
I think with the money they're shilling out, Warren, they're going to have to. And if there really are, I guess there has not been any conversation between the Young Bucks and CM Punk, Kenny Omega. So maybe 1 week you'll have Punk on Collision, then he'll move to Dynamite, which means then you'll see the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega on Collision. Just don't make this brand inclusive. Just make sure that all the performers can bounce back and forth. Who knows? Maybe now we're going to see an Andrade show up in a week or two.
Maybe, and here's another thought. Maybe finally we're just going to send the Ring of Honor guys back to Ring of Honor. Because honestly, if there's one place that you need a brand split, it's there. It's with Ring of Honor. And I've never been one of these folks who complained about having Ring of Honor belts on AEW TV. It doesn't bother me. Like, it really doesn't bother me. But now that there is a Ring of Honor show that you have to subscribe to, that you have to push out cash on top of whatever other expenses you have to watch Ring of Honor, the more you make Ring of Honor feel exclusive. It's like, hey, you want to see Claudio Castagnoli of the Blackpool Combat Club? There's only one place to do it, kind of thing.
Would love that.
Same thing with the Lucha Bros, and I feel like there's enough, between those guys and Wheeler Yuta and, Eddie Kingston being tossed over there. Make them feel exclusive. Make them feel like they don't belong on Dynamite and Collision, right? Or at least if they show up on Dynamite and Collision, it's an event. It's unique. It's special. Right? As opposed to just wibbly wobbly, let's just do whatever we want. Because I think that benefits Ring of Honor more than anything else to have because the pay-per-views are fine. The pay-per-views are great. We're going to probably talk about one of them in a couple of minutes. But, the pay-per-views are fantastic, but Tony wants people to subscribe to friggin' Honor Club. Well, maybe that's something that can happen. It's not as if there's no depth to this roster. There's like 160,000 guys on the roster, and there's like 30 women. It's not as if they don't have the depth to fill the spots that would be missing from guys like Wheeler and Claudio and the Lucha Bros. They have bodies to fill those spots up, and bodies that are chomping at the bit to do something.
And let's get into this. The women, which you just mentioned. You could have, and there's 2 hours now that are going to be on Collision. We could have 2 segments. And Jade Cargill can be featured more. You can have her actually develop more of a program. I mean, I think she's going to move on from Taya Valkyrie here pretty soon. But then Athena, we have seen, has been now exclusive to Ring of Honor, which I think is a good thing.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, but then there are others. We've had like Sky Blue and Willow Nightingale just pop up. They're great performers, but they haven't. Essentially, they've just been a rotation right now to get beaten down by the Outcasts, and there needs to be more semblance, more of a program featured for some of them as well. Like we saw Anna Jay and Julia Hart on Wednesday night, which has been kind of a secondary feud on Rampage as well. So again, you and I both.
And wasn't that fine? That was fine. Like, it won't be match of the year by any stretch of the imagination, but that's what you do. Just have your women go out and do stuff and and isn't Julia Hart currently top 5 merch sellers on AEW shop? Something to that effect. Not the House of Black. Julia Hart.
That's crazy.
With her witch persona and her witchy things. Like, good for her, So you don't have to you don't have to come up with these crazy top tier stories or angles or whatever you want to call them. You just give them something to do. Just give them something to do. And then in the process of giving them something to do, they get over, well, gee willikers, ain't that great? We've got more women to push, more time, and better quarter hour ratings, more merch, more tickets sold. That's just how it goes. So I agree. I mean, hopefully on Collision, we can have more than one segment, more than one segment Not always the same women featured.
Exactly.
I think that'd be great.
I think another big thing that's going to be happening once Forbidden Door is done with is we get 3 weeks, I think maybe 4, of AEW in Canada.
Yeah.
How hot those crowds are going to be. Different provinces that haven't seen AEW live and in the flesh.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're getting the Owen. So that's going to be a big deal for a lot of us in Canada. And that's what that's what's exciting, is that they said they were going to start the tournament at Forbidden Door. So there's going to be New Japan guys who are going to be involved in the tournament. So there might actually be, I don't know how we'll look at the brackets, but there might be a bare minimum one New Japan guy who's going to stick around for this tour. One guy who's not booked on for the G1. The G1 starts in July 15th. I don't know how long, like off the top of my head, I don't remember how long the Owen's going for. But, if New Japan wants to go back and they just leave one dude behind to do the Owen, that'd be fantastic. Then you get a little New Japan. You're in the midst of Regina and Saskatchewan. You ever heard of Regina, Jesse, in Saskatchewan? Have you ever heard of that city? It's a terrible place. It's a terrible, terrible place. And not a big city. It's the capital of Saskatchewan. Bless their hearts. It has one of the highest criminal rates per capita, one of the highest crime rates in the entire country. God bless them if they can have a little excitement, a little New Japan guy sticking around to breathe some life into Regina. Shout out to all your Regina listeners. But
Minoru Suzuki is perfect for this, then, Warren.
See, and he's beloved. They know everyone knows who he is, and there is a fair chance he's not doing the G1. There's a very fair chance
for sure
that Minoru Suzuki's not doing the G1. He'd be a perfect fit. The North American audiences already know who the guy is, as opposed to let's say you were to pull out, and again, no disrespect, Kevin Knight, for instance, right?
Yep.
Who is, yes, a New Japan guy, and a fairly young. Fairly new off of the Young Lion stuff, but people are like, I don't know who this guy is. I can't get excited for Kevin Knight, and I wouldn't blame them to not get excited for Kevin Knight because he doesn't have that name quality just yet. Give it a couple of years though, because that kid's upside is ridiculous. But even if you put Jeff Cobb in there, people will be like, this is awesome. You know what I mean? Like it'd be so many possibilities. Yeah, no, the Canadian tour is pretty exciting. I'm pretty stoked for that. And the Owen finishing in Calgary. The Saddle Dome, it's like a 17, I think it's more than that. It's like a 21,000 seat arena, stadium, I should say, the Saddle Dome in Calgary. That's when the tour is ending. It's happening during the Calgary Stampede, which is like a touchstone event across the country. It's like a huge rodeo, basically. And it's happening during the Stampede. It's going to be a bananas weekend. People are going to go nuts for this, and they'd be closing out the Owen in Calgary, in the home. Like that's heart country. You couldn't ask for anything better. That's gonna rule. That's gonna rule.
Give me like 80% of the volume that WWF Canadian Stampede had in 1997.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a circus. It was tremendous.
You just wait in Toronto. You just went in Toronto for Forbidden Door. That audience is going to be nuts. It's going to be a party. It's not going to be anything like Wembley. Wembley's going to shame us all, Jesse. The Wembley audience, the UK fans, they're going to shame us all.
The UK loves their graps, that's for sure. Shout out to Puerto Rico, by the way, which we're going to get into after this topic. There are many underutilized female and male performers in the WWE. I want you, Warren, to give me one male and female who you would like to see pushed towards the top of the card or just pushed, period. Seen on TV more.
That's a good one. Okay. I think for women, I think it is unquestionably Piper Niven. She is fantastic. And she's someone who I was familiar with her work before she hit the NXT UK deal, and she has North American fans haven't even scratched the surface of what she's able to do. And I don't know if WWE is telling her, oh, you got to drop weight. You know how they get weird with that stuff sometimes. WWE gets really weird with, oh, you got to drop weight. And then they come back and like, oh, they lost like 50 pounds. I'm like, holy shit. It doesn't matter. She's amazing. Like, she is everything they wanted out of Nia Jax. Yes. She's everything they wanted out of Nia Jax, and they have her right there. A woman who is, who's double the stature of anyone else on the roster, bare minimum, triple, who can be the beast that they want her to be in that division, but who can also go, who doesn't just she's not just a reactionary wrestler like Nia was, where Nia would just wait for people to do shit on her, so then she would react to that. She has offense. She can go. She's a delight on the microphone, a lovely human on top of that. I think she is criminally wasted, and it makes me wonder if WWE would know how to handle her. I don't know if they'd be able, if they know how to book her properly. If they can't book Omos, Jesse and Omos,
I know,
is tailor-made for WWE. What chance does poor Piper have? But yeah, she's definitely not really. She's definitely one. And one of the dudes, right?
Yes. I'll give you my female, and then we'll let you go into the male piece. It's Shayna Baszler.
Yeah, that's another good one.
She's been on TV, I think, 4 or 5 times this year. Last time we saw her was at WrestleMania 39. Oh, they won the tag team. They won that tag team affair with 4 other teams where Ronda limped her way for 30 seconds, got the tap out, and walked right out. But Shayna, ever since she's been on the main roster, outside of her first month when she annihilated everybody in that female elimination chamber, then she goes out and loses to Becky at WrestleMania, and we haven't seen anything from her since. She can go in the ring, and she can talk a little too, but just channel back to the NXT character for me, please. Let's go with Shayna Baszler.
I don't want Shayna to cut 7-minute promos. I don't care. I want her to go. I want her to go snap people in half. Now, Jesse, I'm going to ask you something. Who do you believe is in control of WWE creative right now?
As a whole, I think
it's either one or two guys.
Yeah.
Who do you feel it is?
I would say 80% of it is Paul Levesque.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'd say the opposite. I think Vince gives them. I think Vince gives the marching orders, and then Paul is like, "Okay, I'll try and make this work," kind of thing.
There's
the point being.
Yeah, go ahead.
My point being is that I think that since Vince has returned, I think Shayna doesn't have a chance. I think Shayna was getting a push because Trips understands the shoot background, the catch background, but Vince doesn't get her. Vince doesn't understand any of this. So I don't think she stands a chance anymore. I really don't.
And it's also probably a big reason why a lot of the people that Triple H has rehired that Vince fired and laid off, by the way, they've been afterthoughts on TV.
I would assume so, or at least, I think, if I'm in, if I transpose to any corporate environment I've ever been in, there's some fights that you really fight hard for. Like, I feel like bringing the way back together on Raw is Triple H fighting for his boys and girls there, Candace and Dexter and Johnny, he's like, I'm fighting Vince to put this on TV because Vince would never let this happen because Vince doesn't understand it, right? But then he probably has to negotiate with Vince, and when Vince says, no, we're doing Cody versus Brock again, Triple H sort of goes, okay, I have to shrug on this because otherwise, I'm going to be failing this person and this person and this person. He's cutting his losses at this point. That's how, I'm assuming, right? But that's how it works in corporate environments. You fight for one thing, but then you have to give a little back on the other hand if you want to maintain the thing you fought for. Just good negotiations. That's how it goes. It sucks, but I think with Vince back in charge, or having his fingers in creative, I don't think she stands a chance. Why do you think? Why was Matt Riddle reinserted, coming out of nowhere, inserted right into the bloodline for no reason? What was it? I know they tried to manufacture this connection. Oh, Roman Reigns beat him once. Roman Reigns beat a bunch of guys. It doesn't matter.
And I think Solo Sikoa might have put him out. That might have been the other reason. But outside of that, no, we agree completely.
It's like that's a Vince move. That is absolutely a Vince move.
That's fair.
So, that's what I'm thinking. So it sucks for Shayna, honestly.
Big time.
Vince doesn't get her. He doesn't understand her.
Yeah, there's a lot that he doesn't understand. And especially when it comes to his roster, which isn't even his roster anymore.
No, I agree.
Paul hired a bit. One more. You got a mail?
Okay, so one that they're underused. I'm hoping that they use Grayson Waller really well, because Grayson Waller was a highlight for me watching NXT PLEs. I think he's consistently entertaining and good and gets it. But this is not what we're looking for here. I would say underusing. What if Shinsuke Nakamura really had the passion and what if I could feel like Shinsuke still had the spark, the flame, that he still did want to put on some of the greatest wrestling matches in the world, right? Then I'd be like, okay, then he's completely underutilized, because he feels like an afterthought, and they'll try to warm him up, but then they'll let him cool off again, and then they'll try and warm him up again, and they'll cool him off again. And I don't know if it's one part his attitude and, one part creative not knowing what to do with him, or more of column A, more of column B. But I would love Shinsuke Nakamura to just tear it up. I know he can, not, getting into these things with Karrion Kross that I could not care less about. You know what I mean?
So bad. Mm-hmm. It's awful. See, I could go the obvious. I could say Montez Ford. I won't. Grayson Waller, you already mentioned him. I had thought about him. I won't. I'm going to go with one that's completely off the board. I would love to see, because he's been underutilized ever since he left a certain faction. Give me Cedric Alexander.
Oh, that's very good, actually. Yeah.
Anything's better than what he's doing right now. And
don't treat him like a little guy. Just let him get out there and wrestle and do the thing. I agree.
Yeah.
That's actually
Send MVP right back. Have him be the mouthpiece, and just let him work and go out and destroy people from a in-ring standpoint, of course.
Lumbar check, everyone. For sure.
Which also, which, by the way, I don't know if I want to bring this up because I know how much of a Candice LeRae fan you are. The lumbar check that he delivered to Candice, that's all over GIFs and videos. It's
legendary. It's the stuff of legend. I think honestly that's the time that it made the move. That's I think Candice's sell on that is just spectacular. It just looked like the single most devastating move of all time in pro wrestling. Was great. No. Props to Candice. What are you talking about? For taking that and doing it. Come on now.
Incredible.
Come on.
Incredible.
She ain't no porcelain little pixie. I'll tell you what.
This is true. She is now a very strong mom. Happy Mother's Day to Candice LeRae.
Absolutely.
And let's move on. Let's celebrate the positivity of 2023 and go into it, Warren, just how good / great / phenomenal these pay-per-views and PLEs that we've seen from the WWE, AEW, and such have been in 2023.
It's been mind-blowing. Just as I was talking earlier, we're coming up to, slowly coming into the half year right now. And people are probably already have their match, their show of the years already set, and we still have 6 more months to go. The quality has been through the roof, and everyone has been putting their best foot forward. Everyone. WWE got they did right by Puerto Rico, had a fun show. WrestleMania Night 1 was outstanding stuff. New Japan, Wrestle Kingdom was incredible. Sakura Genesis was a fantastic show. Revolution, what are we talking about? an AEW Revolution, which is arguably one of the greatest pay-per-views of all time.
It's gonna be hard to beat this.
And the Muto show, the cross promoted Muto show at the Tokyo Dome, that was just phenomenal stuff from top to bottom. And Ring of Honor coming back with Supercard of Honor this year, which was like, arguably the best show of WrestleMania weekend, from A to Z. It's I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Stardom show, the All-Star Queendom, which is a show that I was thoroughly entertained on, a long show on top of that, but one where I was like, I'm just sitting through this and I'm enjoying every minute of it. We've got Best of Super Juniors that just started off a couple of days ago, and I'd say, look, night 2 you can skip, but night 1 was phenomenal.
Yes.
Night three was great too. Everyone has their best foot forward, Jesse, and I don't know what's going on, but I'm not complaining. I'm sitting down to watch these big shows, and I'm just and I'm surprised. I get surprised. I get entertained. I get everything I want out of my pro wrestling. I turn it off with a smile off my face, on my face, not off my face. Eventually, it comes off when I go to sleep. But I do get, I sit down and I watch it, and it's fantastic. I'll tell you what, the only brand that hasn't been doing it is NXT. Their PLEs have been monotonous, been terrible. That Stand and Deliver show was junk. I hated it. I thought it was terrible. And now, and like I said, like the only shining star for me on these shows has been Grayson Waller. Now he's gone, so I don't even know. I don't know what to latch on to. But never mind that. I think like it's awesome because no matter what you're into, whether it's it's Puro, WWE, AEW, whatever you're really honed in on, you are getting good stuff from the companies you like, as a fan. And that's great. Like, I'm not going to sit around and debate, try to convince people who are super into WWE that, this was bad. WrestleMania 1, the night 1 was fantastic. The Puerto Rico show was a blast. One of the easiest WWE shows I've watched in a long time. Like, that's it. It's like, I don't know if you feel the same way. I know you watch a lot of stuff too, but it's just been a remarkable 2023.
I can honestly go back through the WWE's PLEs this year and watch something from each one of them. The Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens, the final angle afterwards is all-time great, with Sammy hitting Roman with the chair. You get Roman versus Sammy at Elimination Chamber and how hot that crowd was. Montreal absolutely exploded. You got to love it. You being a fellow Canadian, that's something I'll go back and watch. Night 1 of WrestleMania, from Dominic Mysterio until the main event, was incredible. It's one of the best PLEs that they've had. Backlash, Bad Bunny. We got that in front of a Puerto Rican crowd, and you get the biggest pop, arguably, of the year from Carlito.
Yeah, it was just...
I got goosebumps when Carlito came out.
Unreal.
That's unreal. WWE, too. So I have to give them kudos for at least doing something fantastic on every PLE this year.
Yeah, no, and the match quality has been there. Like, the WWE will always be WWE in the sense that,
yes,
you will have Bianca Belair and Io Sky. I'm starting to get used to the Sky part.
I know.
You'll get that as a barn burner opener, as a match where you're like, okay, this absolutely slaps. You're going to get the bad. You're going to get the Bad Bunny celebration of wrestling. You're going to get. You're going to get. What was the other? You're going to get Seth Rollins and Omos, just putting something wild together. You're going to get Brock bleeding from the forehead, like between his eyes, not at the forehead, like just like right here. But then you're going to get, Austin Theory's triple threat match. And then you're like, but the good in these circumstances, and it's the same thing with night 1 of WrestleMania. The good is so good that makes everything rise, or you forget. You don't put as much emphasis on the things that didn't work, because the things that did worked so well and were so spectacular. And you can just, I don't know, this is fine. This is a great show. This is an absolute great show, an all-timer.
Rhea and Charlotte Flair, I thought, stole night one.
Oh, that was my match of the night.
If we're going women's wrestling, yes. Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair was match of the night for the entire Well, yeah, I will say the entire WrestleMania. I enjoyed Gunther, Sheamus, and Drew McIntyre.
That was a blast. That was awesome, actually. That was incredible. I agree. But you know what was great with Charlotte and Rhea? Is they're like, oh, we're not going on last? Okay.
That was so great.
Sure. Okay, then. And then they just tore the house down and won Charlotte's best match of her career. And Rhea, too, by association.
Yes.
Just Charlotte's career, where, we're more acquainted with it. It's been longer, so on and so forth. It's unquestionably both women's best match of their career. It's an absolute highlight. Yeah. It's an absolute highlight for WWE. Like, if you want to, you can put it up there with Sasha and Bayley at Brooklyn. It's right up there. If you want to talk about seminal, important, crucial, big time WWE women's matches, right there. Absolutely.
100%. Yeah, I think the only thing, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch from Evolution might be the only thing that's close. I think that's fantastic in Charlotte's career. But
that was a blast. That was the like was it a TLC match? I know it was like no DQ. It was a weapons match. I remember they had.
Yes, I remember ladders.
At bare minimum, it was no DQ. I think it was a TLC. And it was just outstanding stuff. Yeah. That was a great one.
So there has been something from every WWE PLE that has been exceptional. And was Backlash actually good in spurts?
I think it was actually good. Like I said, I think the stuff that really worked on the card worked so hard that the things that weren't as great, the Rhea Ripley squash and the three-way match, and I didn't really care for the six-man stuff either, which I felt was very house showish of a match, if that makes sense.
Yes. Spot for them too.
Yeah. It's not things that I got excited about, but it didn't ruin my appreciation of everything else that connected. The audience was so important about it. Man, Jesse, I mean, there are weirdos out there who are like, man, I miss the Thunderdome. And I'm like, how can you miss empty arenas when you have when your product is hot and you're putting on things that people want to see? You could get crowds like Puerto Rico every other month or so on and so forth. And I'm not saying every week, but you could. That crowd was so instrumental in making that show as awesome as it was, that you feel bad then that WWE feels like they have to pipe in the cheers and the boos afterwards because so many other things aren't connecting and aren't working, like Austin Theory, for instance, where they still have to do the crowd jeers while everyone is just sitting down with their arms crossed. And you're listening to the heat and you're like, wait, shouldn't they all be standing up and booing them right now? But no, they're all just sitting down, arms crossed. Anyway.
So much truth in John Cena's promo, unfortunately. Tore him down, and look where Austin Theory's been ever since. But
there you go. Well. Oh, well.
I know you and I both agree on that one. So we got Vegas coming up for Double or Nothing. Toronto. We have London getting Money in the Bank.
Yeah, we forget about that, but the O2, right? We got the O2 set up for Money in the Bank. It's going to be a great summer. It's going to be a great summer of pro wrestling, and AEW is going to hit hard because there's no sports. Like, they don't have the usual competition. The NFL hasn't started yet. NBA is going to be done. The NHL is going to be done. So there's going to be no more preemptions and all that stuff. Tony Khan's going to want to go hard this summer and make sure that he creates a fan base that's going to follow him through the tougher sports season. So
That's what's been so great about the WWE and now AEW is the international crowds are going to get to add some spice to this.
Yes. That Wembley crowd is going to be crazy. It's going to be so ridiculously loud. It's going to be a party. What are they up to? 67,000 tickets now, I believe. 67K.
Yes. I think the night before I'm going to have to watch SummerSlam 92.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to. I think we're going to have to do that.
Brett Bulldog, main event.
Yeah. The greatest carry job of all time.
Yes. That could be another podcast for another day, too.
Exactly.
Oh, yes. I'm fooked, Warren. I'm fooked.
Yep.
Let's close.
That's putting it mildly.
I actually, this is a little off topic, but did you see Joey Janela's one of his tweets and responses to AEW going to All In?
I did see him congratulate them, right? He was being
being great, but he also threw a very candid joke in there about who's going to continue the timely tradition of going over to England and partaking in some recreational.
Yeah, some very hard recreational drugs.
Yes.
Well, hopefully no one.
I know. The folklore of wrestling back in the
yeah.
Let's close with a tremendous positive that some of our audience might not know about. And right now, he's currently in Japan. Signed with Impact, Speedball Mike Bailey. And for some who have not heard of him, he's been on the pro wrestling radar since probably 2014, I would say. 2015. Right. Participated in PWG for a while. Matches on there if you want to go have a DVD delivered to you by Excalibur or Super Dragon. You could do that, or go onto one of the subscription services that exclusively distributes the product. But the wrestling's best kept secret, arguably now, is on the forefront. And now we've already seen him in the Best of Super Junior wrestle Hiromu Takahashi on night one of the Best Super Juniors and just absolutely tear it up. And he's been doing it ever since in Impact with a 60-minute draw with Josh Alexander and vice versa. Can we now just throw Speedball Mike Bailey into the conversation as one of the top pro wrestlers on planet Earth?
I think he's a natural shoo-in into the conversation. I think what's going to what's missing is him testing his mettle against those that we already consider to be some of the greatest out there, like Kenny, like Will. He had a match with Will Ospreay in Rev Pro, if I'm not mistaken, last year.
Yes,
which was pretty damn good. It's funny because Chris Charlton was pointing it out on commentary on night one of the Best of Super Juniors, which everyone should watch, and it's available for free. New Japan is giving out night one for free, and it is one of the easiest, breeziest 2 hour and 45 minute pro wrestling show that you will ever watch. It is fantastic. And Chris Charlton was putting out an extremely cognizant point where he was saying that previously, pre-pandemic, right, and all the visa issues that Bailey kept them from coming back to perform to the US specifically, he was much more of a high flyer. He'd do the flippy doos and all of that stuff, but now he's become precise, and I think that's what makes Speedball stand out quite a bit. And that's what Charlton was pointing out. And it was like, oh, well, there you go. Chris Charlton once again nails it on the head. Everything he does, all the moves that he hits, even though he does still do some, leaping aerial technique.
Yes.
The result, he doesn't do it if he can't hit it, if it doesn't land square. He won't just do a Phoenix Splash for the hell of it, if he doesn't feel like I can land a Phoenix Splash every single time. So everything that he does is pinpoint precise every single time. And he kicks hard. On night two, you have TJP,
yep,
love him or hate him, say, Speedball Mike Bailey is one of the top 3 guys who have ever kicked me this hard in my entire life.
Wow.
So he's got all the credentials. He's got all he's building himself the good old fashioned way where he's just hitting the indies. He's got his deal with Impact, which is great for him. But if all you do is focus in on what he does on Impact, you are missing out on so much. He's back working Japan because he had worked Japan before. He had worked all over the place. The guy's special. The guy is absolutely special. He won the Battle of Los Angeles.
I was going to mention that.
In that as well,
Konosuke Takeshita in the finals. And I wish I could see that match. Give it a month or 2.
Damn you, Super Dragon.
He's wrestled Jonathan Gresham this year, who is still an exceptional talent. Josh Alexander, I believe did he wrestle Kota Ibushi over in GCW?
He did. Weekend? He had the Bloodsport match. So it wasn't necessarily like it's a Bloodsport match, so it's not it's shoot wrestling, so it's a different style, so on and so forth. But he did, it wouldn't be the. I don't think anyone would consider it to be the penultimate Kota Ibushi Mike Bailey match, but there's another one. There's another, like they have another one in the chamber for sure, right? But this is a guy, even when he started, right? And this is a match that I saw. He wrestled Chris Hero in PWG, like 2000, probably like around when he started, 2014, 2015 at the most.
Yeah.
And they had a barn burner. And I didn't know who this guy was. Next thing I know, he's Canadian. Next thing I know, he's from my province. Next thing I know what street he used to live on. Wow. It's like, I know where you like. It's amazing to me. So this guy has tremendous upside, and he has one of the things that works really well with him, but also is a detriment, is he has an extremely positive energy, right? But it translates, and I don't know how to put it, but it translates a little, sometimes it can be a little off-putting. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
That energy that he has when he comes out and he's smiling, and the look and the mullet and all of that. And as good as he is, I feel like there will be a ceiling for him if he doesn't tweak that bit of his personality. If it doesn't, I'm not saying dump it all, go bald. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that he won't hit the heights. Maybe if he maintains, if what he gives off isn't tweaked a little bit. Because otherwise, the guy is spotless, and he's a hard worker. He wrestled like 60 million times at WrestleMania weekend last year, and 60 million the week, this week again, at WrestleMania week again this year. He's unstoppable. He's unflappable. He's absolutely fantastic. He's a guy that I'm always excited to see wrestle, and he's in this core of pro wrestlers that has buzz around him. So when he fights at Konosuke Takeshita at the end of PWG in the finals, people get hyped up about it because they're like, oh, well, it's Konosuke Takeshita and Mike Bailey. So that's good for him, I don't know if he'll make
Vikingo. It. Wrestled him too.
No, there you see. He's in this strata of pro wrestlers, of unsigned pro wrestlers that just has tons of buzz. Will he be able to become like a major star? Like, ooh. I don't think WWE is a landing spot for him. It's going to be an absolute disaster unless his body is completely shot and he just needs to work a very light style, very light schedule. I'll be fine for him. If he ends up in AEW, I have more confidence. He's a perfect match for Japan. Like, for Japan, he is absolutely spectacular. His match quality is not going to hold him back. But you see, we were saying the same thing about Will Ospreay a few years ago.
Sure were.
I'm going to temper what I said about his energy and when he was feeling in regards to Will Ospreay, where he was like, yeah, he's a goof. He's an idiot. oh, sure, he's a great wrestler, but he's a dope, that was the energy that he was giving off. And it's like, but what did Will Ospreay do in the meantime? He worked and he kept working and he took everything he did super seriously, for good or ill. Now you turn around and it's like, you cannot have a conversation of best wrestler in the world without mentioning his name. If you do, it's out of bad faith. If you talk about best wrestlers in the world and you omit him, it's out of bad faith, or you just really never seen him wrestle.
He's
but
changed.
Tremendously, like he is unabashedly a main eventer. You know what I mean? And doing the flippy doos with Ricochet back in 2014, would you have said Will Ospreay, main event guy?
Back then, probably not, but he piqued my curiosity, him and
Sure.
Rick O'Shea. Like, wow, I've never seen this before, and look where Will is now. Yeah.
And look where Will is now, exactly. And I would argue that people were saying Ricochet is going to be the bigger out of the two. So I'm tempering what I'm saying with who knows what's going to happen, because the thing is that ultimately this guy has talent. He has pure, unbridled talent. He has a love of pro wrestling. He's dedicating his life to pro wrestling. There's no two ways about it. He's one of us. He watches tape. He goes on his Twitch stream and he starts up, matches from, Wrestle One from 2004. And he's like, let's watch this, guys, and it's like he's a wrestling nerd.
I love it.
So I wouldn't be surprised that despite what you would consider to be an off-putting personality, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes beyond that, and you become so undeniable that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're just going to be one of the all-time greats, not unlike Ospreay.
Yeah, Speedball, like I said, there's a handful of people in my sector that haven't heard of him, but I've gone out, I've seen matches with Walter as well in OTT. I mean,
right?
This is the talent is insane. Now it's just a matter of him, like you said, tweaking a little bit, but he's a student of the game at the same time, so the passion lives through him. And once he finds something that clicks to a newer audience, all of a sudden, maybe that's when the star becomes elevated.
That exactly, and part of it will also be where he falls, where he ends up. I sincerely believe Tony Khan has made an offer to Speedball, and I sincerely believe Speedball is like, I'm not ready. It's not time for me. It's not time for me to do this yet. Work. Creates the buzz. I think he's smart to that, where he knows what kind of skills he has, what kind of buzz he can create. And then eventually when he does return TK's phone call and says, okay, yeah, you want to talk? Let's talk. It'll be at the right moment, at a moment where not unlike Jay White. Here, I think Jay White is a good example.
Yeah.
Think about Jay White 4 years ago. Okay. Pre-pandemic. He was main eventing. He was an IWGP heavyweight champion, but would you have brought him in as a big time player into your company? If his contract had been freed up at the time, if he was available, would you have been like, yeah, let's bring in Jay White? Maybe, but maybe not with as much enthusiasm, or it's like, hey, international superstar Jay White is here, kind of thing. Jay White put himself into a position where he's undeniable. Like, he's, a huge star, and could be a huge star anywhere he decides to go. And that's just par for the course. He's a guy. I think Speedball wants to work to that. He wants to be a guy as well, where the moment that he does sign to one of the two big leagues, one of the two majors, it'll be at a moment where, I'm going to be undeniable. And at the same time, I'm going to be able to get them the best money on my contract at the same time. So there's also that consideration, and he absolutely should do that. So
I think AJ Styles paved that path better than anybody.
Sure. AJ is a very good example on that. But at the same time, I think AJ legitimately wanted to be a TNA / Impact all-timer. Like, I think he was very loyal until the day where he realized, like,
Can't do it. Yeah.
everything's going to shit here, and I have to hit the bricks. So he went off and like legitimately became an international star in Japan, and then came back. And I don't know what AJ Styles did to get Vince to like him so much. I really don't, because Vince couldn't have given a shit about Bullet Club, gave even less a shit about TNA, right? And the guy comes in and he's put into a program with John Cena a few months after he's in. I that's a formula that I haven't seen anyone successfully pull off since. Like for that, that's a Hall of Famer right there. Just
AJ
for doing that.
Crushed it.
Yeah.
He had a non-memorable match with Jericho at WrestleMania, but right after that, they literally threw him into a program with Roman when Roman was his first time as champion out of WrestleMania, and put on exceptional matches to the point where Vince was like, I can't hold him back.
But what was the thing? Like, what? Because at the same time, AJ Styles has all the qualities that Vince hates.
Yes, he
in
does.
A guy. He's small. He's not built. He's got a Southern accent. Like but all stuff that we know Vince doesn't like. And yet, he's like, I'm going to throw him in here with my top guys. Here's your feud with John Cena. Run wild. What did AJ Styles do to get Vince on his side like that? Because everything pointed to Vince not liking this guy and burying him.
Yeah, he stood out. It's no pun intended to RVD, one of a kind, because Samoa Joe has gotten fired twice by Vince, and he had a bigger, arguably, a similar resume to AJ Styles, but an absolute stone cold killer in Ring of Honor and TNA, something that can't be denied. And he's gone on to AEW and done some tremendous things, and he's back in Ring of Honor where he rightfully belongs. So yeah, I think Vince is like, this, I don't know what I see in this. I don't see anything in this person, but the fans sure do. But that's really all I really can say.
But then at the same time, he's trying to, probably.
That is the truth.
But then he was supposed to, what was the thing? I'm trying to remember. I may have I'm not quite sure. I might have my stories mixed up here, but it's fascinating. And Vince listening to the crowd and whatnot. Vince doesn't listen to the crowd and hadn't listened to the crowd for years. He was shoving Roman down everyone's throats as a babyface, and everyone was rejecting him. But Vince was no, there's something. And I don't know what it is, because it's not his account, because Vince, on top of that, Vince hates guys that he hasn't built. Why do you think he had, Sting be buried by all his guys? Because Sting was the guy from the other company.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he had Undertaker bury him, and Sting's run in WWE was terrible, because that's how Vince operates. And AJ Styles coming in, who is this guy? I ain't got nothing for him. That's why I'm saying it's like everything in the case of AJ Styles, everything pointed to Vince hating the guy, and yet he gave him a push. It's weird. It's maybe John vouched for him. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
That has to be the case.
I don't know.
Because all the other guys that were involved in the United States title chase when Cena was giving open challenges every week, I mean, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, they're near the main event now, but they're in and out.
Fluctuates, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are the only two that have gotten close with, like I said, and Cena had matches he had an incredible 2 out of 3 with Owens.
For sure.
Zayn unfortunately hurt his shoulder, and I think, what was he? Oh, he threw his arm like that into the middle of the ring, or he was walking down the ramp, he dislocated his shoulder.
Yeah, just by being excited.
Sammy.
It's such a generico thing to do, though. It just makes sense, though.
It is. We love Sami Zayn for so many reasons. I'm not going to end the show that way, so I'm not going to bring that up. Warren Hayes. This has been a pleasure having you on this show for the first video guest of mine on the Unplugged Wrestling Podcast. So what I love to do is I want you to promote socials and anything near and dear to you projects. I'm going to feature this on the ticker as well.
All right. Well, let's start then. I record my own podcast every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's called the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, where I recap the week in the week in wrestling news. We talk about a whole bunch of stuff. I like to focus on the business side as well. Well, not focus, but I like to talk about it. So if you're into it, reviewing shows, previewing shows, it's a fun time. YouTube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. Then you can catch the video on demand after, or also on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and whatever new one is popping up recently. You can follow me on all of that. I have exited Twitter with much aplomb, and I'm very fortunate about that. But I do have a Discord, the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. If you do go to my Twitter page, I guess the link is still there, so you can follow us in there. And there's a nice, lovely community over there. I'm on Blue Sky now, thanks to Jesse, who sent me an invitation. I appreciate it a great deal. What is it? It's Mr. Warren Hayes .social. I don't know how you're supposed to say it.
Lines. Right? There's something like 77,000 people on there, so this is beta at its finest right now.
Yes, so you can still come in. You can absolutely join me there. That's exciting stuff. Mr. Warren Hayes Show podcast, YouTube. I also do an AEW review on a weekly basis. I review Dynamite the next day, every Thursday. So if you join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel, subscribe, and you won't miss a thing. And I can't thank Jesse enough for having me on the first show like this. It was a blast, man, and it was so nice to be able to share some time with you, some thoughts and talk again. It was fantastic. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
I know we waxed poetic for an hour and 40 some odd minutes. I remember, like I said, the last show, we dove into all type of topics from Daniel Bryan at that time to Shingo Takagi to Blood and Guts to Canada to Canadian wrestling to Minnesota wrestling. It was just all over the board. It was such a fun show. Bell to Bells at that time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is still around, by the way. Currently curated by Kristen Ashley. So if you want to check that out as well, it's at belltobells.com, where you can follow Bell to Bells on Twitter at Bell to Bells for all of your women's wrestling goodness. That's where it happened.
And that'll be scrolling down here. I might have gotten it wrong, but I could be. Yeah. That looks
No, you're good. That's exactly it.
Good deal. I knew. So yeah, I have visited there a time or two. Shout out to yourself. Chris and Ashley, thank you so much for your contributions to the chat. Always appreciated on video show number 1. So Jesse C. Velasquez on Twitter, Wrestling U in the letter U, also on Twitter, Google, Apple, and Spotify is where you can find this podcast. You can find this lovely show here on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, soon to be Facebook Live in a couple of weeks as we get that group up and running, maybe a Discord. There's so many things. There's so many ways you can find me. And I don't really know if there's anything else I can add. So Warren, I'm going to let you give us some words of wisdom as we leave here.
Stay away from stupid people.
Those are about the best words of wisdom as I think that we could definitely add to the end of this show. Blue sky for all of you. It's going to happen. Just give it till the end of 2023. It actually has been a really fun place to chat with folks and also just find zero controversy of which to speak of. It's great.
I agree.
Invite codes with a capital I. They're coming, folks. They're coming. And for Mr. Warren Hayes, my name is Jesse Velasquez. That has been episode 1 from video form, but episode 125 of the Unplugged Wrestling Podcast, and we'll see you on the flip side.